What if I told you that on January 1st, 2026, one of the largest silver-producing nations on Earth just flipped the chessboard on global markets, and you didn't even hear about it on the news? China has banned silver exports. Full stop. No exceptions. No negotiations. And while mainstream media is calling it a resource policy adjustment, what if this is actually the opening move in a financial war that's been brewing since 1971? What if the real target isn't just silver, but the entire illusion of Western financial dominance built on paper promises and derivatives nobody understands? Here's what should terrify you. Right now, your retirement account, your savings, your ability to protect yourself from inflation, all of it sits downstream from a metal market so manipulated, so leveraged, so detached from physical reality that when it snaps, the shockwave will make 2008 look like a practice round. So here's my question for you. Where are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments, because what's coming is global, and I want to know who's paying attention. And if you're tired of the sanitized version of financial news, hit subscribe. This channel exists to show you the unfiltered truth they don't want trending. Let's talk about what happens when 1.4 billion people stop selling silver to 8 billion people who desperately need it. The hidden history nobody talks about. To understand why this export ban is an atomic bomb with a lit fuse, you need to understand something Wall Street has spent 50 years trying to make you forget. Silver used to be money. Real money. Constitutional money. For thousands of years, silver was the people's currency, while gold was the king's metal. In 1792, the United States Coinage Act defined the dollar as 371.25 grains of pure silver. Your dollar was silver. It wasn't backed by silver, it was silver. Then, in 1873, Congress passed the Coinage Act that demonetized silver, later called the Crime of 1873, because it happened quietly, without debate, crushing farmers and working-class Americans who held their wealth in silver coins. Bankers got richer. The people got poorer. Sound familiar? Fast forward to 1964. The US government stopped putting silver in dimes and quarters because, and here's the official story, it was too expensive. The real reason? They were printing money faster than they could mine silver, and the illusion was collapsing. People were melting coins because the metal was worth more than the face value. Sound familiar? Then came 1971. Nixon closed the gold window, completely severed the dollar from precious metals. No more redemptions. No more limits. Just pure, unlimited fiat currency backed by nothing but military power and the word trust. And here's where it gets ugly. Once you remove the metal, you remove the constraint. Derivatives exploded. Financial engineering replaced actual production. The entire global economy became a casino where bets on bets on bets now total over 600 trillion, 10 times the GDP of planet Earth. Sound familiar? Because China just looked at that system and said, not anymore. The mechanism. They do not want you understanding. Here's the part they're not telling you on Bloomberg or CNBC. China isn't just banning silver exports because they want to hoard shiny metal. This is about the London Bullion Market Association, the LBMA, and the paper silver scam that's been running since the 1980s. Let me explain the key mechanism that makes this export ban a potential financial nuke: unallocated silver trading and fractional bullion banking. In the modern precious metals market, when you buy silver through most major dealers or ETFs, you're not buying physical metal. You're buying a claim, a piece of paper that says you own silver, stored in a vault somewhere in London or New York. But here's the dirty secret. That same ounce of silver has been sold to 100 different people. It's called fractional reserve bullion banking, and it's legal. The LBMA admits to an average allocation ratio of 1,100 in unallocated accounts. That means for every actual ounce sitting in the vault, there are 100 paper claims against it. Now imagine what happens when the supplier of physical metal, China, the world's third largest silver producer, suddenly says, no more exports, we're keeping it. The paper game collapses, the fractional reserve breaks, and everyone holding a paper claim rushes to convert it to physical metal at the exact same time. You won't believe the name of the bank that's been at the center of silver price suppression for decades, and the receipt is wilder than you think. The derivatives leverage death spiral. Let's get into the how, because this is where the conspiracy becomes math, and math doesn't lie. The global silver market trades approximately $5 trillion worth of derivatives annually, but here's the insane part. Global silver mine production is only about 25,000 metric tons per year, worth roughly $20 billion at current prices. Read that again. $5 trillion in paper trades, $20 billion in actual metal. That's a leverage ratio of 250.1. This is not a market. This is a controlled demolition waiting for a spark, and China just struck the match. Here's how the scam works in practice. Major bullion banks, JP Morgan, HSBC, Scotiabank, act as market makers in silver, they sell massive short positions on the COMEX futures exchange, flooding the market with paper contracts that promise future delivery of silver. These shorts suppress the price because they create artificial supply that doesn't physically exist. Between 2008 and 2016, JP Morgan was fined over $920 million for manipulating precious metals markets through spoofing, placing fake orders to manipulate prices. But here's the kicker. While they were suppressing prices with paper shorts, they were simultaneously accumulating the largest physical silver hoard in history, over 150 million ounces. Suppress the price with fake supply, buy the real metal cheap, wait for the collapse, profit. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's a documented, fined, admitted strategy. The Chinese counter-move now. Let's talk about why China's export ban is the perfect financial judo move. China produces roughly 3,600 metric tons of silver per year, about 14% of global supply. But more importantly, China is the world's largest manufacturer of solar panels, electric vehicles, and advanced electronics. All of these industries are massively silver intensive. A single solar panel uses about 20 grams of silver. China installed 216 gigawatts of solar capacity in 2023 alone that consumed over 4,300 metric tons of silver just for domestic energy infrastructure. Electric vehicle production. Each EV uses 25 to 50 grams of silver in various components. China produced 9.5 million EVs in 2023. 5G infrastructure, AI server farms, military technology, all of it requires silver because silver is the most conductive metal on Earth. There is no substitute for high-performance applications. So here's what China is really saying with this export ban. We are keeping the metal that powers the future. You can keep your paper derivatives and fractional banking. We'll take the atoms. The COMEX delivery crisis, waiting to happen. The COMEX. The commodity exchange in New York, where silver futures are traded, has a registered silver inventory of approximately 280 million ounces as of December 2024. That sounds like a lot until you realize that open interest in silver futures represents claims on over 900 million ounces. That's a 3.2.1 ratio of claims to metal. But it gets worse. Of that 280 million ounces, only about 75 million is in the registered category, meaning it's actually available for delivery. The rest is eligible, meaning it's sitting in COMEX vaults, but the owners haven't agreed to sell it. Now remove China from the export market starting January 1st, 2026. Suddenly, industrial users who relied on Chinese supply have to source metal elsewhere. They turn to the COMEX. They demand delivery. But the metal isn't there. It never was. It was an accounting entry, a ledger balance, a promise on paper backed by the assumption that not everyone would ask for their metal at the same time. This is the exact same moral hazard that destroyed the housing market in 2008. Banks assumed not everyone would default simultaneously. They were wrong. The derivatives collapsed. $10 trillion evaporated. The silver market is the same fragility, same greed, same parasitic finance structure, just with a shinier underlying asset. The $100 silver price target isn't speculation, it's math. Let's do the numbers on what happens when paper converts to metal demand. Current global silver demand is approximately 1.2 billion ounces per year. Industrial demand is growing at 5 to 7% annually due to green energy and technology. Investment demand, people buying physical coins and bars, has surged 30% year over year since 2022 as inflation fears spike. Supply? Global mine production is essentially flat. It's been stuck at 25,000 to 26,000 metric tons for years because silver is primarily a byproduct of copper, lead, and zinc mining. You can't just mine more silver without mining more of those base metals, and those markets are constrained by their own supply-demand dynamics. So we have demand growing 5 to 7% annually, supply flat or declining, China removing 14% of global supply from export markets, and paper-to-physical conversion pressure from fractional banking unwind. When you model this out, even conservative estimates put silver at $60 to $75 per ounce by late 2026. That's just supply-demand fundamentals. But add in the panic premium, the price spike that happens when people realize the metal isn't available and they are holding worthless paper, and you get to $100, $150, even $200 per ounce. During the Hunt brothers' attempted silver corner in 1980, silver hit $50 per ounce, equivalent to $185 in today's inflation-adjusted dollars. And that was just two billionaires trying to corner the market. Imagine what happens when nation-states and industrial users are all competing for shrinking supply. The strategic resource warfare dimension. Here's the part that should keep Pentagon planners awake at night. Silver is not just an investment metal. It's a critical strategic resource for military technology. Advanced missile guidance systems, radar, jet engines, night vision equipment all require silver for electrical contacts and conductivity. The U.S. military consumed an estimated 300 metric tons of silver in 2023 across all defense applications. That doesn't sound like much until you realize the U.S. only produces about 870 metric tons domestically. We're a net importer. And who's been one of our largest import sources? China. So on January 1st, 2026, the U.S. defense industrial base just lost access to a critical input for weapon systems, and there's no quick substitute. You can't just switch to copper or aluminum in applications that require silver's unique properties. This is economic warfare disguised as environmental policy. China is playing 4D chess while Western media is still explaining checkers. The engineered illusion of stability. Here's what makes this entire situation so insidious. The system is designed to look stable right up until the moment it isn't. Silver prices are currently hovering around $30 per ounce. The market looks calm. ETF holdings are steady. Futures contracts are trading normally, but underneath, the leverage is building, the physical shortage is growing, the delivery demands are queuing. And every day closer to January 1st, 2026, the probability of a catastrophic unwind increases. This is the same pattern we saw in 2008 with mortgage-backed securities. Everything looked fine until Lehman Brothers collapsed, and suddenly everyone realized the assets backing trillions in derivatives were worthless. The silver market is a financial IED, and China just set the timer. What this means for you. So here's where we are. The largest manufacturing economy on Earth just locked down exports of a critical industrial metal that was also one of humanity's oldest forms of money, and they did it with less than 2 weeks' notice. This isn't about recycling policy or environmental standards. This is about China recognizing that in a world heading toward energy transition, digital infrastructure, and potential conflict, physical resources matter more than financial derivatives. And here's the brutal truth. The modern system is faster and more interconnected than anything we've seen before. In 1980, it took months for the Hunt brothers' silver manipulation to unwind. In 2008, the housing collapse took a year to fully cascade through global markets. Today, high-frequency trading algorithms can liquidate entire positions in microseconds. Margin calls happen automatically. Delivery failures trigger immediate defaults. When the silver market breaks, and with China's export ban, it's when, not if, the unwind will be measured in days, maybe hours. Your pension fund that holds precious metals ETFs? Exposed. Your industrial stocks in solar, EVE, and tech? Exposed. Your inflation hedge strategy that relied on accessible physical silver? Exposed. This is the danger of trusting institutions built on borrowed time and leveraged lies. We have spent 50 years building a financial system that prioritizes the illusion of liquidity over the reality of scarcity. We've let bankers convince us that paper claims are just as good as physical assets. China is calling that bluff, and the rest of the world is about to learn a very expensive lesson in the difference between ownership and exposure. The philosophical lesson here is about denial. We live in an era where official narratives are constructed to prevent panic, not to reveal truth. Transitory inflation, soft landing, well-capitalized banks. These are mantras designed to keep you calm while the people with actual information position themselves for what's coming. You have to ask yourself, are we wiser now? Or are we just walking the same path in better suits? Because the mechanics haven't changed. The greed hasn't changed. The moral hazard hasn't changed. We're still running fractional reserve systems where multiple people claim ownership of the same asset. We're still trusting the same banks that were fined hundreds of millions for the exact manipulation we're discussing. We're still ignoring the warning signs because acknowledging them would require uncomfortable action. China sees this. They've watched Western financial crises for decades. 2008, the European debt crisis, the 2020 repo market seizure. They've studied how paper markets collapse when confidence breaks. And now they're removing themselves from the dependency chain before the next collapse. They're securing physical resources while the West secures financial derivatives. So here's my challenge to you. Share this video with someone who thinks the financial system is stable. Share it with someone who trusts that their silver ETF actually contains metal. Share it with someone who believes markets are rational and regulators are protecting us. And drop a comment telling me, do you think silver hits $100 by the end of 2026? Are you positioned for this, or are you still holding paper promises? Subscribe if you want analysis that doesn't come from the same institutions that profit from your ignorance. Because January 1st, 2026 is less than 2 weeks away, and the clock is ticking on the biggest precious metals crisis of the 21st century. Are we wiser now, or walking the same path in better suits? The answer will cost you either way, but only one choice lets you see it coming.